Well, this is a video showing the latest incarnation of the Washboard sharpening block. This is the version that will be shipping from July 2015 onward. It's a little bit bigger than the original, so I'm having these machine made. I no longer am scribing them by hand. This is the original size, which was 2" by 8" standard combination stone size, and this is 2 5/8 by 11. Takes very good advantage of the size of standard wet-dry sandpaper. It also has a slightly different base and mounting configuration that's a little more simple and a lot more effective. And that's really what this video is about. To mount different substrates on here, different thicknesses of paper, you need to shim these base wedges. And this is nothing more than a little bit of cover stock folded over twice, so 2 layers of paper. The thickness of the slots is such that it can accommodate up to 60 grit wet-dry paper. It's a snug fit, but it'll do it. It can easily do 80. The thicker the paper that you insert into the slots, the less shim material you will need. I usually start out one side. Make sure the rubber ends don't overlap with the slots, the mounting slots. Just start one side of the paper in. Take your shim. Give it a wiggle. It should seat fairly easily. If there's too much play, you can always go back and add a little more paper. And take it, flip it around to the other side. Now if you want, actually pin the slack to the other wedge. Shim stock here. And the slots in the bottom are cut with a bias, so it's going to want to pull all the paper from the face and the side into the slot before it starts to pull from the back. And if you push this down a little bit with your fingers, that increases that tendency. You just give it a little wiggle and you'll see it'll start to ratchet or feed the paper in, the wet dry from the slack. And it doesn't have to be super tight fit in the slot to get a nice tight effect on the top. Now if you want to remove every last bit of slack from it, just go back and redo this. Redo the first side. So initially when you put the first side in, there was no real tension on it. Now there is. So when you go back to put this in, you have to give it a pretty good wiggle, just like you did the other side. At that point the paper is very tight across the top. You can easily use a 4 1/2 type stroke, a leading stroke. The only place you really have to watch out for is the outside corners, and that's always been true on this. And that is the long and short of it. Obviously on thicker wet dry or any other type of paper you will use less shim stock, maybe 1 layer. And you can use any type of paper for your shim stock. One of the better choices that I have found is if you have a sheet of old played out sandpaper, you can just trim it, fold it over, put the abrasive side resting on the wedge and the backing side facing your sandpaper, and it pushes right in. Works great. The board is still sized to take 6" diamond lapping film, so you can still have that as an economical option for high carbide steel. As you get into thinner and thinner papers, things like baking parchment, really thin text weight paper for applying the compound, you will have to add additional layers of shim stock. But again, the fit doesn't have to be precise. It just has to be good enough to kind of wedge it into the slot. And if it's too wiggly, you won't have a very secure base. But it's very forgiving. It's not a precision endeavor by any means. And within 1 or 2 uses, you'll get the gist of it pretty well. And that's about it. Thanks for watching.